Hi everyone, welcome to yet another very interesting growth story from Concurate only for you. And it's a Friday too, time for our coffee sessions. For us, Fridays are Learning Fridays, and we share our learnings with you all. Today, we are going to see how this open source SaaS grew from $0 in annual recurring revenue to $1 million in annual recurring revenue in 2 years. Only the revenue part. They had been working on the product for a little longer than that. But let's see. So today we are going to cover the story of Plausible. It's the simple and privacy friendly alternative to Google Analytics. Now you see this, that simple, privacy friendly. There are some keywords which are part of their positioning. They have registered like anything in my mind, that it is lightweight, that it is highly privacy respecting, that it is simple and easy to use, because this messaging had been consistent in everything that they have done. And I'll walk you through how they did it. Okay. Now, where it all started. Okay. It all started with a developer who was given a task to integrate Google Analytics in one of the landing pages. Now, he was highly unsatisfied with the way the Google Analytics works. He wanted to keep stuff private. However, he knew that Google has a lot of cookie tracking, and because that is something it needs to run AdSense after all, right? He didn't want that. Google Analytics, the interface is quite challenging to use. I remember one of my colleagues had given a presentation on Google Analytics, how to use. Now, I was quite surprised at his pace of delivering the presentation, because it's only a person who is like super practiced with the interface can give. Then later I asked him, how did you manage to do it? He said, Aditi, I had the notes written, and that's how I was able to manage to give that presentation in a flow. So it's difficult to come into your memory map, right? Then that person who felt that he's capable of trying out there and creating an alternative to Google Analytics, also the co-founder of Plausible, Yuku, he decided to take the plunge. Okay, he created it in 2018. He started creating that, and at the same time, because he was doing this building public stuff, so he was also recording what he was doing and sharing with people. In 2019, they made their first launch for the beta program. Now they made the launch through indie hackers, a community of entrepreneurs and developers. Now, absolutely, it's a great choice to have the like-minded audience and the people who use that popular Google or alternative stuff. Like more than 50% websites in the world, maybe the number is still low, are powered by Google Analytics. So, of course, it was the right place to launch, and it helped them get like initial traction. And they still have their indie hackers profile. They keep updating it with all the milestones and stuff. Now, gradually, what they did, they had launched in indie hacker community somewhere in January, and in May they came up with a paid subscription. Now it was tricky because Google Analytics is free, and also they were not really the first alternatives to Google Analytics. There were a couple more that existed in the market, but they were highly priced. So they found that little gap, and they came up with an affordable price to give people a reason to ditch Google Analytics. And they managed to get 60 active beta users who also continued, like some of whom also continued to be the paid users for Plausible Analytics. To pick a fight and go viral. Now, who wants to pick a fight with a market leader? Not many, right? And when you do something that not many people do, people want to listen to you and watch out for what you're up to. And that's what they did. And how did they do it? They picked the fight by writing the post that you should stop using Google Analytics on your website. Now, when like almost every website in the world is using Google Analytics and you're asking to stop, people would want to know why. Okay, so this again went viral for them. And then they what they also had done was they had done reach outs to influential websites, and they got coverage from opensource.com, which is quite interesting because when these renowned websites talk about you, these websites already have a good amount of right traffic and they help you raise awareness around your brand, right? So this was really helpful. Then it's interesting that whatever product updates they used to do, they used to talk about it in public, which is of course a part of build in public philosophy, but that also helps bring the raise brand awareness and contributes to the content marketing bit of it. So they were earlier using some other database and they switched to ClickHouse. Why they switched and how the switch would benefit, etc., is something that they spoke about. Now, next thing was this Hacker News stuff. So yes, I'm a marketer, but I have never submitted anything on Hacker News. But multiple times I have heard in different growth stories that if you are able to make it to one of the top stories on Hacker News, you are able to gain a lot of traction for what you're doing. Something similar happened here also. They have done multiple stories on Hacker News, and when I was going through this study, I went to Hacker News. I'm not a follower of Hacker News, but I did go there and see how people can submit, what are the guidelines. It seemed that it's not a Herculean task, but you got to be a little wise in posting. I think we can leave that responsibility to the creativity of the content and the copywriters. So the post that they did was how to pay your rent with an open source project. Now, open source project is something people use their savings to fuel, or they take a break from their regular jobs and stuff, and when they are able to pay their rent with such projects, it makes a news. And again, this got them a lot of traction. Next was Product Hunt launch. Now, when you do launches like this on Product Hunt or other communities, you do see a traffic spike. Maybe it is for a couple of days or so, maximum within that week. These are good for short term, but in long term, it doesn't really work. Okay. So, but it became the part of their journaling, wherein they had launched what they learned. You see, I really loved that they kept talking about how their experience had been good, bad, ugly, and they're sharing their lessons with everyone, a part of their marketing strategy. Now, then it's like sharing the win, wherein they were able to pay themselves their first salaries. And that also, they talk about in the blog. Then next thing was this open source licensing. When they started growing, they wanted to make sure that they are not taken advantage of. So they dig deeper, and again, this also they documented. So look at their blog strategy. It is like sharing everything transparently, and transparency is one of their core values, be it in marketing, be it in product development, be it in anything that they do. So here what they are saying is, of course, open source need better funding models. Currently what we have seen is donations and stuff, but they said for 6 months they got like just 6 donations of $5 each. How could they survive with funding model like this? So what they did was they had a premium service layer on top of their basic product, which was like open source project free for all to use, and that got them like $8,500 monthly recurring revenue. They had some cloud product. So as one more learning in this case study is, if you can run a premium managed service over this open source, there's a good chance you'll be able to make decent money and support yourself at least until your product becomes real success and you become profitable and stuff. Then finally in 2021, they reached this significant milestone of 10,000 monthly recurring revenue, and they were able to cover up for their savings that they had used and their regular costs and stuff. And see, every win is documented, every lesson learned is documented and shared in public. What's also interesting is, after starting to get it all for themselves, like making up for the savings, they also started giving back. When you give back, and the things that you choose to give back to also reflects on your value system and your beliefs. Then in March, it was like huge scaling in terms of support. Now Google is quite infamous for the kind of support it provides. This Plausible guys, they wanted to win here also. They saw that a lot of people had questions, a few things needed fixing, and there were repeated issues asked. So they came about a process of automating the responses for similar queries and stuff, which was quite interesting. Then next thing was, next learning from this case study is बहती गंगा में हाथ धोना, like washing hands in the flowing river, which is giving the personal spin to a news piece. So Google came up with some news, and it was already news, people were reading about it, and they were like a direct alternative to a Google product. So they published a blog which had their personal spin, and it was read by like 16,000 people that month, which is quite interesting. So learning here is to keep an eye on the news and see if we can give it a personal spin and if it relates to our product. Then they did something similar again when Google AMP is dead kind of news came in, and this helped them with direct traffic. It helped them with raising brand awareness, social media mentions and stuff. Then they needed, and by the way, they are still a 4-member team, and they are still small but doing very well for themselves. So this Robert is a computer engineer. I think he was in his final year working part-time, and he helped them with the support stuff and fixing queries and stuff. Then another learning here in this is publishing your own studies. Now ad blockers is quite a common thing in this domain, and they knew that people would be interested in reading a study that relates to it. So they conducted a study themselves where they say 58% of Hacker News, Reddit and tech-savvy audiences, they blog Google Analytics. So the idea here was, let's say Google Analytics was showing that 100 people visited your website, but actually 200 people had visited. In this study, I had gone to this page and studied the content. The idea was, the people who had blocked Google Analytics were not getting tracked in the Google Analytics thing. Of course, many people are very cautious about their privacy and they don't want to lose it to Google, their privacy stuff. So the study is what they published and it helped them out. Now the learning here is, we must publish our original studies and we should also conduct surveys. Now I will take this as a marketing advice and I would like you also to take it. Then next thing here is making $500,000 ARR. They just kept doing what they were doing. They were engaging with the community. They were building new features. They were reaching out to people. They had people reaching out to them. They were responding well. They were working on the infrastructure, optimizing everything they possibly can. Then in 2022 January, the year started like really well for them. It started with the news that Google Analytics violates the GDPR rules of privacy. And in fact, Austrian and French DPA says that it's illegal to do so and stuff. And this was like a great opportunity for them, wherein they can showcase they're all about respecting your privacy and not really violating it. And Google did just the opposite. So they got lucky here and they leveraged the opportunity like anything. And there they got their fourth member. And then there is this news, by the way, that from July 1st, 2023, Google Analytics is going to stop tracking stats. What? It's time for us to switch. So this news also they used in their blog and spoke about how Plausible is a great alternative and stuff. In fact, what they did was, because this news came out that it will stop, they came up with a function wherein people could import the analytics from Google when they are switching to Plausible. This reminds me of a story again. I had read it somewhere. It was about property broker stuff. They identified that people don't like to switch from their current places to the new ones, even though they have the money, interest, everything, just out of the friction of who would sell all the current property and do it. So this particular property brokerage firm, they took the responsibility of selling the old house. So what I'm trying to say here is, because they wanted people to switch from Google Analytics to Plausible, which is an alternative, they wanted to make sure that it is frictionless, and whatever friction is there, they can help. So the friction was, how will they get their old Google Analytics? Plausible will do it for you. Finally, they have made 1 million ARR mark in this June, and they're saying that their marketing strategy is simple, boring, and it doesn't really feature any exciting growth hacks. What I really loved about their marketing and their product is the approach is similar. For example, when you say privacy, I had read this blog of theirs where they do not use these 15 best marketing practices, that they do not have so many call to actions कि यहाँ से एक pop-up आ रहा है, यहाँ से एक pop-up आ रहा है. They don't disturb the person's navigation on their website. They do not use this retargeting and stuff, which uses the privacy or the cookie stuff. So this unification of maintaining the core elements parallelly in both the spheres is what I really loved about them. And I wish them all the best, and I thank Marco for writing this case study and enlightening us and giving us ideas that we can use in our marketing campaigns. By the way, Concurate is a content marketing agency, and I look after the content over there. Again, we are a small team, but grand, ambitious, and giving our best. So for any of your content marketing needs, do check us out. And see you soon with more inspirational stories. And before I go back, I want to share one more thing. All their pieces, the titles of all of them are like make you curious to read. Google Analytics will stop. You should stop using Google Analytics. Some agency called Google Analytics illegal. So many people do not use Google Analytics. They block. So whatever posts they wrote, it had to gauge the interest because the title was so enticing for people to read. Anyway, hope to see you soon. Have a good week. Bye-bye. So this one post that gave them a great traffic spike was about something where they had taken a stance. Now, when you take a stance, there would be people who would be talking against your stance and some would support it. Here in this particular post, they were talking about probably you do not need a single page application. Now, what are single page applications? That is something like Gmail. Whatever you click, whatever you do, everything happens on the same page. You are not directed elsewhere, right? So what happens is, when you do that single page stuff, a lot of heavyweight things happen, because browsers are not accustomed to the traditional, they are not accustomed to this kind of architecture where things are happening, everything is happening on the same page. That makes things, heavyweight, and their vision was to have something lightweight, right? The product Plausible, they wanted it to be super lightweight. Now, when they took this stance from marketing perspective, it got a lot of attention and it went viral. And of course, people talked about it, shared their views and stuff. Then they were not open source yet, but in September they became open source. And this move was driven by the fact that it's a great way to build trust in privacy first market. Now 2020, wherein so developer, that is Yuku, had already brought the thing to a very good level, but still, however great the product be, without marketing, it's difficult to get humongous success like this. And the search for a marketing co-founder began. Now, how this marketing co-founder, which is Marco, who has written this beautiful post, got in touch with Yuku. Actually, Marco had written a post which was about de-googling the website. That is, it said that when you are doing anything on your websites which are like powered by Google, a lot of heavy resources, etc., privacy, a lot of things where which matched the values that Yuku had. So Yuku wrote a cold email, like a simple email to Marco, that he is doing so and so project, is looking for someone who can take care of marketing. And that's how these two people got in touch, and Marco spearheaded the marketing for Plausible. Now, when Marco joined, of course the numbers weren't great because they had just started. And he says he's quite fan of setting tiny goals for himself. So he started with, getting to a place where they have 10 organic visitors per day. And for that, what was his plan of action? Now, this plan of action seemed very important to me when I was reading this whole blog. Because it was, first thing was, when they say privacy first, not even a single cookie should be getting saved. It was like a relaunch. Then the brand positioning was, of course, Plausible was an alternative. And I told you in the beginning of the session also that there are these 3-4 words which are about their positioning that they have spoken about again and again, and being consistent, that they got mapped on my mind. And that's lightweight, open source, privacy first, Google alternative, simple to use. So this positioning is something they kept talking about in every information they shared, whether it was email or blog or community interactions. Then they were consistent in their messaging. So for example, instead of having plausible insights or plausible analytics, they wanted to use just one terminology throughout. Then the site structure. So website structure is also very important. When a visitor is on your website, how do you keep him engaged and not make him confused to navigate your website? So he had to merge these two sections called journal and blog and redirected it only to blog. Now, in the articles, they often used to work on the articles that are related to one of these positioning pillars.